Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. If you could do me a quick favor, see that little subscribe button at the bottom of your screen? Go ahead, click that subscribe button. Really does help our channel grow, our audience grow, and I really do appreciate it more than you know. So click that subscribe button. Appreciate your support. Now, here's the video that you came here for. He put out this, and I think it's really interesting. Fun fact. All four of the number one seeds have made it past the first round of the NCAA tournament for the first time ever. So if this March Madness is feeling a little less madnessy, there you go. I actually did not realize that as we're recording. All four number one seeds, obviously Duke, Florida, Auburn, and who's the other one? Florida, Auburn, Duke, and Houston advance. We're not going to go through all, but this is obviously the first time that we have ever seen all four seed lines in the first and second round of the NCAA tournament, first round of the NCAA tournament advance. And I'll tell you this, I was actually thinking about this. It feels less madnessy, but I'll also say, I think this might become the new norm. And I think college basketball fans need to be ready for it. And it's pretty simple. It's because of the fact that all those good mid-major players are now playing high major college basketball, okay? And so first of all, I think it's a couple variables. One, I think that you look, first of all, I just think the number one seeds I think they're just better than they've been. Like I was thinking about that, the Virginia team that lost in the opening round of the NCAA tournament. DeAndre Hunter, remember, was hurt. He was an NBA player. Kyle Guy and Ty Jerome were playing. But that Virginia team without DeAndre Hunter wasn't anything special. They had one NBA player in Ty Jerome. Like, they weren't that good. Now compare it to Florida that has four dudes that are 6'10" that can all play, that has three or four guards that are 4th, 5th, 6-year seniors. You compare it to Auburn, a bunch of 23, 24-year-old, 25-year-old, in Chad Baker Mazara's case, grown men. And so to me, I just think the 1 seeds and 2 seeds are better. But I think it's also directly results in all of these good players from the low and mid majors are now transferring up. Like, it's funny. We're really going to dive into the portal stuff here over the next couple days. But what I think is interesting is that early on in this kind of portal, world that we've started kind of going down, it felt like, yeah, guys would enter the portal, but a lot of guys, if you're playing well at a mid major, if you're happy, if you're having fun, if you like your school, if you got a girlfriend, if you like the coach, you kind of decide to just come back. But now the money is so big that you don't really have a choice. And what I find interesting is basically every leading scorer of every mid-major that I see is entering the portal and basically just looking for that payday up. And so, it's funny because I saw this tweet from Sam Vazini, a guy that I respect. He said, let me see what he said. He said this, I think, he said, tweeted this at about, it would have been midnight Eastern or so. He said, what's been a bummer about this NCAA tournament first round for me is that we haven't had a mid-major get wild hot and push a team. Bryant, which was at the time pushing Michigan State, is pushing Michigan State, but it's not because they're on fire. We just haven't gotten that one super fun game to watch where it's haymaker after haymaker. You want to know why there's no haymaker after haymaker? It's pretty simple, and I like Sam, so this is not like in any way a criticism of Sam. It's because all those players are playing for the high major teams. Like, yeah, you think if Janai Broome was still at Morehead State, he couldn't be a 13 seed and pull off an upset against a 4? I think he probably could. I think he'd be dunking on cats right now. I just, Walter Clayton might be the best guard in America. You think if he was still at Iona, you think he couldn't put up 30 against whoever as a 13, 14 seed? You go on down the list. I'm just trying to think here off the top of my head. Like, Duke has 3 or 4 older guys. Alabama, Mark Sears, where did he start? Mac, Mid-American Athletic, not the Mid-American, the Mid-American Conference. Like, and so I just bring it up because look at all these teams and look at all these schools, and it's not just those guys. Florida, their starting backcourt is Elijah Martin. Yeah, Grant Nelson. Producer Matt just brought up Grant Nelson. Perfect example. Was at North Dakota State. Almost went pro out of North Dakota State. Decides to transfer up to Alabama. But look at Florida. Elijah Martin, Will Richard, and Walter Clayton started at Florida Atlantic, started at Belmont, I want to say, with Will Richard, and started at Iona. Look at, Peanut Butter Posse, I think, is a Kentucky fan. Lamont Butler started at San Diego State. That's not really a mid-major, but it sort of is. Andrew Carr, I know he was at Wake Forest last year, but he was at a mid-major before that. Oh, by the way, producer Matt brings up a couple good ones in the chat. Dalton Connect a year ago. Janelle Davis was at Florida Atlantic. Yeah, like if Nelly, you want to see a mid-major throw haymakers? If Nelly Davis, Elijah Martin, and Vlad Golden, who's now at Michigan, were all still at Florida Atlantic. By the way, Nick Boyd, who was basically their sixth man, was like the best player at San Diego State this year. And so, again, I hope this doesn't come off as me criticizing Vicini, but I just think it's really pretty simple. But I also think that with these players all transferring up, I just think it's going to be harder for these teams to build good rosters, to forget retaining players. And I think, yes, I think there's going to be that night where somebody goes, 17 of 24 from three. And I'm saying that as a team, not a player. But yeah, there's going to be a night where a team goes 17 of 24 from three and they pull off an upset as a 14 seed. But I think more and more, I think the top of the sport is getting better. Look at even in Arizona. Arizona's a 4 seed, okay? Caleb Love transfer from UNC. Jaden Bradley transfer from Alabama. You go on and on down the list. Trey Townsend was a 5th-year guy who played at Oakland last year. And I just think these top teams are going to continue to get better. And I think the gap in money is making it impossible. I'll tell you this. I also think this is a little bit of a sad thing too. I think it's really putting coaches in a bind where coaches want to stay at places, but it's just like the money is so big at some of these places and the money that you need to compete at the highest level is so big they have no choice. I'll give you an example. Nico Medved, the coach of Colorado State, he's a Minnesota alum. The Minnesota job opened 3 years ago. He turned it down. By all accounts, he's going to take it this year because my guess is at Colorado State, he just can't raise the money needed to retain his roster year over year over year over year over year. Where at Minnesota, he's going to have $6-7 million. I don't know about that, but like the upper end of NIL is probably going to be like somewhere in the $6 to $8 million range, maybe higher, maybe 10. And if he needs it at Minnesota, he can probably get it in the Big Ten. I don't know that he can get it other places. Sean Miller. I think there's a lot of people that think that Sean Miller, if the Texas job opens, is actually the favorite for that job. I love Sean, but when he took the Xavier job, what I think is interesting, when he took the Xavier job, he also had South Carolina offered him their job. And I think he felt like I can win bigger at Xavier than with the 15th, 16th best job in the SEC. Now I feel like he doesn't think that anymore. Like if you go to South Carolina, you can raise money there much easier than you can at Xavier. So I just think I don't think that this is necessarily a thing that is going. I think this is going to change college basketball. I really do, because I'm not saying that we'll never see a 2 seed pull up, get upset in round one. I'm never saying we'll see a 15. Listen, Alabama easily could have lost. Michigan State struggled, but I just think it's going to be harder for these teams to pull off upsets because the top is better than it's been, and I think the bottom, frankly, is a little bit worse than it's been as well. Producer Matt shouting out New Mexico, G5. Producer Matt, I hate to say it, that's actually kind of a perfect example. Like New Mexico is set up pretty well for a G5 school, and I think Richard Pitino is trying to get out. I think he's like, I would rather take my shot. He was in the Big Ten, but I think he's like, I would rather take my shot at the 13th best ACC job than try to do it from the Mountain West year over year over year. So it kind of sucks. By the way, completely unrelated side tangent, but I think part of it too is the net, right? I think part of it too is the net, because you see a situation where, you're just so rewarded for playing in one of these power conferences. You're so rewarded for playing in the SEC, where again, it's better right now to finish in 13th place in the SEC than in 3rd place in the Atlantic 10, 13th place in the SEC than going 29-5 like UC Irvine did in another league. So I just bring it up because Peanut Butter Posse, I don't think you intended to bring up such an interesting conversation, but you did. I appreciate you, and I think it is a great conversation.